Take a note where these kids are getting shot in Toronto right now. Well, I know there's some in the middle of the day. I know there's some things happening in the school system. I know we're living in a different hour. But you will find that most of the violence is taking place. Look at it. 1, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. It's amazing how the enemy works. There's something that goes on. There's something that goes on in both spirit realms. And you know and I know that it's in those hours that God can speak to you. You know that when you're quiet, that something happens. But it's also at that time that there's something about the enticement of the enemy to pull people into all kinds of things. It's when nightlife is going ballistic. It's when sin is running rampant. It's when things are happening and the enemy simply is going after you to try and kill you. And in the midst of the darkness, the lions move out. Psalm 42:3, because sometimes when we feel isolated from God, our words can pour out like this. It says this, my tears have been my meal day and night, while they continually say unto me, where is thy God? When I remember these things, I pour out my soul in me, for I have gone with the multitude. What happened? What happens usually in the wee hours of the morning, it's influence. He says, I've gone with the multitude. What happens is you say, I really don't want to do this, but I do it because I'm influenced by somebody that's influencing my life. Somebody draws me in that direction. You have to be very careful who you hang out with, what you do, because the influence of bringing death into your life. You got to protect yourself. He said, listen, I went with them to the house of God with a voice of joy and praise, with a multitude that kept holy days. Why art thou cast down, O my soul, and why art thou disquieted in me? Hope thou in God, for I shall yet praise him for the help of my countenance. Psalms 102:1. A prayer, literally, for the afflicted. Hear my prayer, O Lord, and let my cry come unto thee. Hide not thy face from me in the days where I am in trouble. Incline thy ear unto me in the day when I call, answer me speedily. For my days are consumed like smoke, and my bones are burned as a hurt. My heart is smitten and withered like grass, so that I forget to eat my bread. By reason of the voice of my groanings, my bones cleave to my skin. I am like a pelican of the wilderness. I am like an owl in the desert. I watch and am as a sparrow alone upon the housetop. Mine enemies reproach me all day, and they that are mad against me are sworn against me. For I have eaten ashes like bread, and mingled my drink with weeping, because of thine indignation and thy wrath, for thou hast lifted me up and cast me down. My days are like a shadow that declineth, and I am withered like grass. When we find the depression settling in over your soul, the soul eater is lurking and watching in every move, and there's a reason for it. What does he do? He brings physical sickness. He brings spiritual burdens concerning others. If I were to ask you in this room, how many are burdened for somebody? Probably everybody in the room would lay their hand up. What happens, he gives you overwhelming issues. We face stuff that is overwhelming to us. How many know that there are issues that overwhelm you, that you can hardly stand the pressure of it? You find that all of a sudden there are problems that seem like there is absolutely no end and no solution to. There are financial difficulties. It seems like it's a world of it right now. Relationships that have been forsaken and ruined. Family strains that are closely related to us. I talked to someone the other day, they said, we're not close to our family, we hardly have anything to do with them. And I thought, what a tragedy. Jobs that are filled with seemingly dead ends, looking for something. The darkness of difficulty that brings the soul eater into our life. And lions, we have to know first of all that lions are opportunists. Lions hunt those that are separated. Lions hunt at night. And lastly, lions often work in packs. And lions are very cautious in the beginning stages of the hunt. As a matter of fact, they're very careful when they begin to approach the kill. Their carefulness is clearly seen in the working of their pack. Temptation is much like that. James 1:14. But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. Then when lust is conceived, it bringeth forth sin. And sin, when it is finished, bringeth forth death. There are a multitude of tentacles attached to sin, and what he does is he entices man with it. When a man gets ensnared by sin, the consequences of the sin are factored into the question. What he thought was the height of pleasure will suddenly bring bitter pain. If I were to ask you to put up your hand, and I'm not going to, that you thought that you could do something, and you knew it was wrong, and you did it, only to find out that it gave you terrible pain. You have to understand that what he thought was worldly fulfillment becomes spiritual emptiness. I remember running into a young man a number of years ago that simply, when asking the question, "Why are you here? Where do you come from?" He said, "I'm running." I said, "Really? What are you running from?" He said, "I'm running from God." So that was interesting. He was a young man that was on fire for God, but found himself running away from God. He found himself living it was just like the prodigal son. He had gone right into the gutter, and he was living that way. And he said, "I've been running." And he came back to the Lord. But amazing what the enemy does. What people think would be great liberation, all of a sudden becomes enslavement. What people think would be the key to happiness becomes a prison of despair. And the lion will attack head on, and once he attacks head on, he diverts your attention to all of a sudden from the other sides comes the other lion and they jump on him. It's amazing. And he uses these tactics. Saints of God are attacked on a daily basis, and some things that you face are overwhelming. 1 John 2:15 says, "Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world are the lust of the flesh, of the eye, the pride of life, is not the Father, but is of the world. And the world passes away, and the lust thereof, but he that doeth the will of God abideth forever." How many know that the attack that comes against you is constant and is relentless? The enemy just doesn't give up. And whenever an avenue they can attack, he will do so. And he attacks. And he's going to work, first of all, against you and your life, and your marriage, and your family. He's going to work against your children. He is going to come against the church. He's going to come against everything, because what he does in the family, all of a sudden things happen, whether it's gossip, whether it's all kinds of things, whether it happens in the church. He knows fighting, constant bickering, spiritual immaturity. And then he comes and he works to get recruits for his battle. Those things happen. Now, let me give you a remedy for all of this. Because the reality is, if we don't face issues that are coming against, how many know that we don't fight against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers and spiritual forces, and that we're in a battle on a daily basis? So if lions in this pattern, first of all, they're looking for an opportunity to get you. Secondly, they want you to be separated from other people. And thirdly, they want to hunt at night. And lastly, lions work in packs. They come against you. And despite the attack of the soul eater, Peter left us with some very valuable advice on how to defeat him. He says this: be sober. So Peter is calling for sober-minded thinking that is tempered by godliness. Our thinking must be advanced and disciplined. Second, he says, be vigilant. The saint of God must stay awake and constantly. Then he says to resist. I started to realize about the lion. I was thinking in my office in Arizona, I have on the wall a great big plaque of a lion. I have some pictures of lions. And I started to realize that the Bible tells us that Jesus is the Lion of the tribe of Judah that shall break every chain of bondage. Some people say, well, you can't talk about the devil or you can't glorify it. I recognize that the enemy is out to destroy you and destroy me. I recognize that he has ways and means of doing it. I recognize that we have to expose the works of the kingdom of darkness in order to defeat the kingdom of darkness. We can't just say, well,